righty. I have 8:59. Shall I wait one more minute?
Yes, please.
All right. Good morning and welcome all to staff and to any visitors that we might have, and certainly to all of the Board of Trustees. I'd like to call the June 2nd Board of Trustees meeting to order. And I'd like to start by asking Trustee Bishop Kim Brown if he will bless us with an invocation.
Trustee Brown asked me if I would stand in for him just a few minutes ago.
Okay, I thank you. Is that Vice Chancellor Gary Brown? Who's speaking?
This is
Trustee Harold Barnes.
Yes.
Oh, Trustee Harold Barnes. Thank you, Trustee.
Yes. And now it's going to take me to another minute to figure out what I'm going to say. Anyway, let's go. Let us bow our heads. Good morning, Lord. We thank you for having the opportunity to petition you this morning and ask you to bless our group as we go forward to do the work of this great institution. We ask you to give purpose to that work and give meaning to it and cause us to understand that it is through human betterment, true fellowship, and deeds of kindness that we feel thy presence. Endow us with your wisdom that we make right decisions, and cause us to be bold when boldness is necessary. Cause us to be compassionate when compassion is necessary. And cause us to work together toward this wonderful gift of the opportunity to pursue inclusional excellence as we move forward with this great institution. All these blessings we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that blessing. And now I'd like to call on Trustee Stephanie Johnson to do our roll call.
Madam Chair, she just rejoined us. She must have dropped out. She's connecting.
Okay, we can take a moment to give her an opportunity.
Why did when I hit my space bar, my video go off?
Trustee Johnson, are you with us?
Yes.
All righty. Would you be so kind to do the roll call? Thank you.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
No
I just
problem.
jumped back off.
It's all right.
Just 1 second.
Uh-huh.
Get my eyes on. I don't know why my face is not there. This is the roll call for the full board trustee meeting, June 2nd, 2020 at 9 a.m. Mr. Harold Barnes.
Present.
Mrs. Phyllis Bosworth.
Present.
Captain Bruce C. Brown.
I'm present.
Bishop Kim Brown.
Present.
Mrs. Lynn Bunch.
Present.
Mr. Andy Culpepper.
Present.
Mr. Jimmy Chambers. Mrs. Christine Evans.
Present.
Present Stephanie Johnson. Mrs. Jan Key Robinson.
Present.
Mr. Tracy Swain.
Present.
Mr. Paul Tyne.
Present.
And Mr. Kenneth Wilkins.
Present.
All in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Trustee. Well, once again, good morning, everyone. First, want to acknowledge appreciation for everybody's patience as we're learning this new technology, and some of us are ahead of others as we're also trying to negotiate papers and more importantly, thoughts. So I thank you all for your willingness and your humor as we move forward with this new technology. First this morning, I'd like for all of us to just take a moment and think about our former chancellor who we lost recently, Chancellor Thomas E.H. Conway. It was a long battle, and we know that he is in a better place, but it is always, always heartening to think of the man that we knew and we enjoyed and what he did on behalf of our university. Many of us got to enjoy a personal relationship with him. I am showing, I don't have anybody on my screen, but can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I just would invite the trustees and the staff and anyone else who is on this call to just take a moment of silence in memory of Chancellor Conway. Thank you. And certainly, I know that we are sending prayers and remembrances and good wishes to his beautiful wife and children. This morning, Jimmy, if you'd give a wave, we want to welcome you formally. We've been welcoming you to several different meetings, but this is all official now. Glad that you're among us, our new student president and trustee, who has been already very active. The ideas are rolling. I don't know what time I got a text from you last night saying another great idea, but trustees look forward to hearing from a very engaged president. So we look forward to hearing about what our student body is thinking and what things we can do to support them as we advance the university. So welcome on behalf of the board, Jimmy.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you all.
All righty. Also, formally, just want to once again welcome our Vice Chancellors Lisa McClinton, Business and Finance, and Vice Chancellor Anita Walton, University Advancement. These are two very, very hardworking women, as we all witnessed yesterday as we got our reports from the respective areas, and we are delighted you all are with us, running hard and running fast. We just want to remind you to take care of yourselves, ladies. So thank you for being with us and doing the great work that you're doing. Next, I'd like to announce that we do have a nominating committee because as with every year, we have to select new officers. And we have fortunately been blessed to have Trustee Swain lead us in this nominating committee with the support of Trustee Evans and Wilkins. So we thank you, three trustees, and we look forward to hearing from you as to how we are to proceed. Next, I want to take a minute to thank our chancellor and her team and all of the faculty and staff. We've had discussion here and there about the conditions that our chancellor found herself in when she took over the reins of our university. And that became immediately compounded by a hurricane. And that became immediately compounded by finding that we had a lot of repair and work to do in rebuilding our university. And that then became compounded by the pandemic and the impact that it had not only on our own individual families and our livelihoods, but on our great university. And then that becomes impacted by all of the different things that are happening this day immediately around the social injustices that our country is experiencing and the kinds of conversations and acts of protest, peaceful and otherwise, that we are all experiencing. Meanwhile, in the trenches, Chancellor Dixon, her leadership team, the faculty and the staff doing a Herculean effort on top of a Herculean effort. I'd like our Board of Trustees to take their mics off of mute and join me in a round of applause and appreciation for the hard work of our team. Who knew that the circumstances would be so compounded? So thank you, and it is a heartfelt appreciation. I'd like to bring your attention that we have a list of ECSU policies that were adopted, amended, and repealed, and they were sent to the trustees via email. And lastly, before we welcome and introduce our chair of the Board of Governors, I'd like to remind you that we've had a lot of discussion over email and text on a letter that I mentioned that we were going to again discuss and hopefully vote on in our governance meeting. And that letter, just for everybody to be on the same page, was around the board taking the initiative to recognize the difficult times in which we find ourselves in and letting students, faculty, staff, and alumni hear from us that we are standing shoulder to shoulder with all Americans at this time as we figure out what is the best way to move forward. And what we are professing is that one of the best ways is to stay in civic conversation, to hear from one another. And that is a hard thing to do, to listen without precondition. And so I thank you, board, for taking the time. We talked through the night, we talked in the morning, to just allow ourselves to hear from one another, as we will hear during the governance section. So thank you all very much for your time and attention. And now it really is my privilege to welcome the chair of the Board of Governors, Chair Ramsey. We're delighted that you're with us this morning. Any time that you have to spend with us, we appreciate, and we feel privileged because we know it is an incredibly busy schedule. So I turn the floor over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair Robinson, Chancellor Dixon. I appreciate you all making time and allowing me to spend some time with you and your trustees today. First of all, it's my privilege to be here. To have an opportunity to be around such a hardworking group of people who have taken a university since my time on the Board of Governors such a long way and are making such unbelievable impact on the lives of young people in North Carolina, particularly in Northeastern North Carolina. I'm really privileged to have this opportunity to be with you. I'd hoped to attend a number of Board of Trustee meetings, and I look forward to getting on campus with you all, but unfortunately Zoom has become the norm, and I'm pretty anxious for that to end, as I said before your meeting started today. I often ask, which campus is my favorite campus, or which one is the one I care the most about. And I think I get plugged with NC State most of the time, but to be honest with you, I think my passion really lies at Elizabeth City State University, probably more than any campus in our system. The things that you all are accomplishing there, it gives me so much to be proud of, that and your leadership team, along with Trustee Barnes twisting my arm on occasion over the last few years, has really given me great passion when it comes to Viking pride. I wouldn't mind another basketball game next year either, Chancellor Dixon. So let me thank you for the important work you're doing as trustees. Your efforts guiding this campus do not go unnoticed. The work you're doing supporting the chancellor as you shape the lives of young people is critically important, and certainly is the reason we all give so much time and effort to the university system. Like you, our board's been a little busy adapting recently. Through the efforts of the campuses, we saw more than 50,000 classes move online and had more than 14,000 faculty teaching online as we watch students have to adapt to a whole new way of learning. Not to mention the fact we're all still committed to giving a quality education while changing the way we did things. I think Chancellor Dixon and her team deserve a great hoorah about that, because to ask campuses to make that change in 2 short weeks was really Herculean. While we've done all that, our campuses have been hard working to research and battle COVID-19, building protective gear for hospitals, and bringing COVID tested platforms online. In short, our university has been on the front lines of this battle, and as we see the economy start back up, we know our university system and the individual campuses will be critical to supporting North Carolina and getting us back on our feet. We have worked with the legislature over the last few months and reduced our short session request by more than $700 million to send a message to our elected officials and the people of our state that we know we're facing budget and revenue shortfalls, and the university wants to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Recently, we met and voted not to increase tuition for a 3rd consecutive year and not to raise fees. We realize our students will be facing hardships and their parents will be facing hardships, and we want to do what we can to keep kids in school instead of giving them reasons not to continue with their educations. We know these decisions are going to have great impacts on the campuses. So we've asked the President Roper and the system office team to continue working with leadership on your campus and across all the rest of them to ensure that we're talking about how we get through that. We're discussing next steps that should be taken. Should we see decreases in enrollment, decreases in state funding, and how we move the kids back on campus this fall. We want to figure out how housing is going to be affected, dining and other units across campus, and we certainly are all interested in when athletics can get back on the field to continue to keep us prideful of our institutions. We have recently named a new chancellor at UNC Charlotte and the UNC School of Arts, and we are actively engaged for a search for a new president for our university system. I shared this with someone on the phone this morning. I was told that nobody was going to be interested in being the UNC president, that our board was too difficult to deal with. Well, I don't mind telling you, we've had more than 100 people apply. We have gone through a thorough vetting process with about 35 that presented CVs after our initial inquiries. And we have narrowed that field to just a few candidates. And later this month, we'll be interviewing them and hopefully naming a new president to the board for the entire university system. I would be remiss if I didn't thank President Roper for his leadership. President Roper stepped into a very difficult situation, very much like Chancellor Dixon did. And I can't think of a better person to have led us through a pandemic and the changes we've had to deal with than President Roper. A man with his background, there's no doubt in my mind that God placed him in the right place at the right time, and it has been my personal privilege to work with him. As I bring my remarks to a close, I want to assure you all that I am and the Board of Governors is committed to ensuring Elizabeth City State University's success, and you have our complete support. If you have any questions or concerns going forward about your campus or campus issues, I hope you'll reach out to me directly or through Chair Robinson or Chancellor Dixon, and I will do my very best to support you all in that effort. I thank you again for the time this morning. If you've got specific questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I'll hang on for a few minutes until I have another call with President Roper and some other issues.
Thank you, Chair Ramsey. Very much appreciate it, and appreciate very much being your favorite. We get to share that, right? We get to tell folks we're the favorite.
Again, absolutely.
All right, wonderful. We very much appreciate your leadership. And I don't see any hands for any comments or questions. Chancellor?
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Chairman Ramsey, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we definitely appreciate your support, your advocacy for ECSU. It's always been there, it's genuine, and we just thank you for really supporting this great university, as we all are as well. And just want to say, you took time out of your schedule this morning to be with us, and we understand you have a busy one ahead of you, but thank you for just taking the time out to address our trustees and our staff and faculty and students and alumni who may be joining by live stream. We greatly appreciate the support and your leadership, and also the support of all the UNC Board of Governors. So thank you again.
Thank you again. Thank you, Chancellor Dixon, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chair. Have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye. All righty, we are going to now move into the reading of our State Government Ethics Act. As Chair of the Board of Trustees, it is my responsibility to remind all members of the board of their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict of interest as required by this act. Each member has received the agenda and related information for this Board of Trustees meeting. If any board member knows of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before the Board of Trustees at this meeting, the conflict or appearance of conflict should be identified at this time. Hearing none, I see no hands raised. We'll move on. So this morning we have a special presentation, and it's always when we're talking about our board members and we've been in the trenches together, it's always nice when we can say something personal about them. So I have a little something to share with who we're recognizing this morning, and that is our own trustee Bruce Brown, who has served the Coast Guard and is resigning, and also resigning from the board as he moves with his family to Florida. But first, I will start with the formalities, and that is that Elizabeth City State University presents to Trustee Bruce Brown a token of appreciation in recognition of outstanding service as a member of the ECSU Board of Trustees, 2017 to June 2nd, 2020. The certificate is signed by the Board of Trustees Chair and Chancellor Dixon. Trustee Brown, we will be sure that you get that and remind you that it will be suitable for framing. But I would like to share with the board, Trustee Brown is the number one, he holds the place, number one of trustees who responded almost to nearly all of the emails that I've sent out. And you all know I send out a lot of emails, but he would always provide his perspective. And he and I don't always agree, but what we have found is that we could find a meeting point. And what we enjoyed in that discourse was our mutual respect that we could hear one another. And I want to say personally, Trustee Brown, I'm going to miss that because you challenged me. And I think that you also have challenged some of the other board members. And I think being challenged, there are ways to be challenged in this world. And when you're challenged by a colleague that you respect and you feel that you are working towards the same end, you have found the larger picture of agreement, it makes it a whole lot easier and sometimes fun when we are trying to do something that is for the betterment of others. So on behalf of the whole board, Trustee Brown, we thank you for your service. We wish you well, and we know you got the rest of the meeting, and we hope that we'll hear from you as we proceed through the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to serve.
Thank you. All righty. I am now going to ask for approval of the minutes of the March 10th, 2020 Board of Trustee minutes.
Madam
Chair.
Madam
Yes,
Chair.
please. Yes.
May I just read the script related to the new open meetings law prior to?
Oh, please. Please.
Okay. I just want to remind everyone that we will be conducting today's meeting pursuant to the new amendments to the Open Meetings Act that applied during states of emergency. The amendments were signed into law and allow for public bodies to meet via electronic means. The new law does require, however, that we take all votes via roll call, which we will do today. Additionally, pursuant to the amendments to the law, all chats, instant messages, texts, or other written communication between members of the board regarding the transaction of the public business during the remote meetings are deemed a public record. Finally, committee members, board members, and participating staff, please identify yourself before participating in deliberations, including making motions, proposing amendments, and raising points of order. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Goodson.
Thank you.
All righty. So now it is time for approval of the minutes, and I will call on Ms. Sanders to conduct the roll call and record the votes. All in favor?
Wait, is there a motion?
Oops, I'm sorry.
Trustee Barnes, so moved.
Second?
Trustee Culpepper, seconded.
Thank you.
I will now conduct the roll call for the approval of the minutes. Harold Barnes. Phyllis Bosworth. Yes.
Nope.
Bruce Brown.
Approve.
Kim Brown.
Yes, approved.
Lynn Bunch.
Approve.
Andy Culpepper.
Approve.
Jimmy Chambers.
Approved.
Christine Evans.
Approved.
Stephanie Johnson.
Approved.
Jan King Robinson.
Approve.
Tracy Swain. Tracy Swain.
Approve.
Thank you. Paul Tyne.
Aye.
Thank you. Kenneth Wilkins.
Approved.
Thank you. We have approval.
Thank you. The motion carries. Alrighty, we have a consent agenda, which includes approval of the designers, Hurricane Dorian repairs, JKF architecture, the 800-ton chiller, and V5, approval of Harrington House demolition, residence number 108, which is vacant, lease agreements, farmland, the 35 acres, Century Link, Weeksville Road rentals, and approval of the promotion and tenure appointments discussed in committee yesterday. And I would like a motion.
Trustee Barnes, so moved.
Second?
Trustee Johnson, second.
Thank you. And Gwen, will you conduct the roll call?
Roll call for the consent agenda. Harold
Carl Barnes,
Aye.
Phyllis Bosworth,
Approved.
Bruce Brown,
Approve.
Kim Brown,
Approved.
Lynn Bunch,
Approved.
Andy Culpepper,
Approved.
Jimmy Chambers,
Approved.
Christine Evans,
Approved.
Stephanie Johnson,
Approved.
Jan King Robinson,
Approve.
Tracy Swain,
Approved.
Paul Tyne,
Aye.
Kenneth Wilkins.
Thank you. Motion carries. Great. All right, we are moving to the report on the Trustees Endowment Committee. During the Board of Trustees Endowment Committee, Vice Chancellor McClinton and Gina Knight, Controller, provided a brief summary on the endowment, and the endowment was provided in advance. The performance overview since inception is 5.08% for the ECSU Foundation and 4.89% for the ECSU Endowment. Vice Chancellor Anita Walton provided the committee with an update of the year to the date giving report totaling $1,120,123. VC Walton then shared updates in the following areas: review of the first 90 days, fundraising progress, we've passed our goal for FY 2020, responding to COVID-19, the university along with the system office created a student assistance fund, which was $28,280. Goals for the next fiscal year to include developing engagement strategies and completing the conversion from Banner to Razor's Edge next. And finally, fundraising and building blocks. Trustees will receive an update on their giving for FY 20. This concludes the report for the Board of Trustees of the Endowment Committee. All righty. And I'm requesting direction from either Ms. Sanders or Attorney Goodson. Are we fine to move on to the next committee?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty.
Reports at this point.
That's right. I'm sorry. The next committee report. So Trustee Lynn Bunch, are you prepared to report out? Trustee Bunch?
You're on mute.
All right, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, the Academic and Enrollment Services Committee had no action items. As information, the committee received an update on the SAC-COC reaffirmation process, including the timeline and the virtual visit schedule for June the 24th, 2020, and the compliance report being due on September the 8th, 2020. An update was provided regarding the transition to remote learning during the spring 2020 semester. Academic Affairs and Information Technology worked together to serve 64 students with laptops and 35 students with hotspots during the transition to remote learning. Pre-registration for fall 2020 was conducted virtually, and all summer school classes were transitioned. Information on policies that were updated due to COVID-19, including the emergency grading policy, which implemented the pass-fail option for students, was also discussed. Provost Ward also provided an update regarding the CARES Act student aid funds that have been distributed and presented information on the fall 2020 reintegration plans. Details on the changes to the minimum admission requirements were presented, along with information on virtual recruiting efforts for the fall 2020 semester. This concludes the report for the Academic and Enrollment Services Committee.
Thank you, Trustee Bunch. We'll now call on Trustee Kim Brown for the report on the Student Experience Committee.
Good morning. During the Student Experience Committee meeting, we received updates from the Division of Student Affairs, the Student Government Association President, and Athletics. Vice Chancellor Gary Brown provided an overview of the student affairs during especially COVID-19 to include the COVID-19 response and engagement He shared details surrounding fall 2020 and how we will navigate bringing students back on campus during the pandemic, preparation and shared resource development. Information was also included to include a list of grant submissions and the status. Total awarded year to date is $9,100. The board also received information on the success of ECSU's first community connections performance and lecture series. So thank you to Trustee Bosworth once again for that. And then SGA President Jimmy Chambers introduced himself and presented his executive cabinet, which he was commended on the diversity of his executive cabinet. He provided a brief history of the establishment of the SGA, which was meaningful for me, especially given the time that we're in, because it was literally birthed out of protest. And I was totally ignorant of that as a trustee. And so thank you, sir, for educating us yesterday. And he discussed his vision for the road ahead very clearly. So welcome as well, once again, to Trustee Jimmy. I do like you, but you're gonna have big shoes to fill. The previous two, I still talk to them weekly. And so hopefully we'll have the same kind of relationship. I know what's going on in their life weekly. Well, maybe not weekly, but we talk very often. They were very, very good young people. Athletics Director George Bright gave us reason to celebrate with the selection of a new women's basketball coach, as he provided overviews for his department, progress and highlights, began to inform us on how the 2019-20 academic performance and updated us on how COVID-19 will affect athletics, at least at this point. And then he talked about the return to action game plan. He highlighted and showed us pictures of Roebuck Stadium. This concludes the report of the Student Experience Committee.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. We'll now move to the report of the Infrastructure and Technology Committee. Trustee Harold Barnes.
Good morning. During the Infrastructure and Technology Committee, we received information on G.R. Little and Moore Hall. They are on schedule for reopening September 2020 and spring 2021, respectively. On the USDA project, Bass Hall renovations are on schedule and anticipated for reopening in the fall of 2020. Hugh Kell and Dove Hall demolition are on schedule. The committee approved the following action, also indicated in the consent agenda. JFK Architecture as the Hurricane Dorian repair designer. NBS was approved as the 800-ton chiller designer. Harrington House demolition, residence at number 108, vacant, was approved for demolition. Bedell Cafeteria. NV5 design firm chosen for Bedell Cafeteria. Bidding for general contractors will take place the week of June 8th. Technology updates. New Information Security Officer, Munir Idris, started April 2020. The transition for remote operations for business continuity was implemented with collaborative tools such as Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and SharePoint. Campus-only applications are now cloud-based and accessible remotely for end users. Loaner programs issued and mailed 67 laptops and 35 hotspots for student use. That concludes the report for the Infrastructure and Technology Committee.
Thank you, Trustee Barnes.
You're welcome.
And now we move to the report of the Finance, Audit, and Strategic Planning Committee. Trustee Andy Culpepper.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. During the Finance, Audit, and Strategic Planning Committee yesterday, June 1st, 2020, the committee received updates from Finance and Internal Audit. Vice Chancellor for Business and Finance, Lisa McClinton, reported that the general fund and auxiliary and trust funds budgets versus actual were trending favorable as of 3/31/20. She also discussed the state of North Carolina COVID relief funding that ECSU will receive both in fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. An update on the Board of Governors' decision not to authorize fiscal year 21 tuition and fee increases, CARES Act funding, and that ECSU has maintained a stable Baa2 rating, which she surprised me and said that's better than ours. And some of the other larger historic Black colleges, I thought it was pretty amazing that we got that rating from Moody's. Anyway, that was a report from Moody's credit rating done in May. Then we had Chief Audit Officer Sharnita Parker, who presented informational items only, which was a summary of completed reports. 2 reports were completed, but only 1 was released, and that was the University Advancement Operations. This review identified 3 recommendations, and because of these recommendations, a follow-up will be conducted in the future. This concludes the report of Finance, Audit, and Strategic Planning Committee.
Thank you, Trustee Culpepper. We now move on to the report of the Committee on Regional Development. Trustee Paul Tyne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During the Regional Development Committee, Dr. Wilkins provided an update on the Small Business and Technology Development Center's SBTDC activity since the COVID-19 pandemic. The report also included year-to-date data. Additional information was provided on COVID-19's impact on the regional development strategic goals. Although the new strategic plan identifies several goals to begin July 2020, only 1 goal is scheduled to be completed by June 2021, as the others are ongoing. That goal is create and promote a board of visitors for premier signature programs to include aviation, business, and education to further engage community members and businesses. The pandemic should not affect the completion of this goal. The university will ask members of the Board of Trustees to assist in providing recommendations to the Board of Visitors at a future date. The committee will discuss at the next meeting how the members can assist the university in achieving the multi-year goals slated to begin July 2020. The board members thanked Michael Twitty, SPTDC's director, for his 34 years of service to ECSU and congratulated him on his retirement to begin August 2020. That concludes the report for the Regional Development Committee.
Thank you, Trustee Tyne. All righty. We'll now move to the report on governance and executive personnel. During the Governance and Executive and Personnel Committee, we received information on personnel matters. A legal affairs update and action items requiring the approval of the board were discussed in closed session. We also have another matter that I raised with the board yesterday and then again in my opening remarks. I initiated with the board a letter that would go to our Viking family. The Viking family, including students, faculty, staff, and alumni. And I saw it as an opportunity, and after much discussion with all members of the board, essentially we had a consensus. We had some folks that thought, there might be other ways to expressing that sentiment, and we appreciated the opportunity to have that debate. But the letter's intent is to invite our community to have civic discourse around a very difficult topic. It is an opportunity as a leadership team, the board, the governing board of ECSU, to acknowledge to our community how our citizens within the community are feeling, along with the citizenship that we experience and feel as Americans. We as a country have not had easy dialogue. We have not developed language around reconciliation. And each time we have these bubble ups and the tragedy that occurs around these times. And many of us have lived long enough and have the gray hair to show it, that we have been now through the 50s, the 60s, things that happened in the 70s and now in the 2000s. that there becomes fatigue across the continuum of race, age, all of the different ways that we define and dimensions of diversity. There is a shared fatigue. But in the end, as Americans, we find energy. We find energy because of the belief in the Constitution, the Pledge of Allegiance, all those things that hold up to us the promise of who we can be. And those are the galvanizing, I believe, instruments and beliefs that we share. And the faith that many of us have in that which is greater than us. And so that was the intention in which the letter was written. We had a number of people that discussed it over last night and this evening. And so I bring it to the board during our governance committee now for motion so that we might have the opportunity for whatever discussion ensues, and then for a vote on whether this is something that you would like to have us share as a board to the Viking family. And if you would like me to read the letter aloud, you have a copy of the letter, whatever is the pleasure of the board. First, I ask for the motion so that we can begin the discussion.
Trustee Kenneth Wilkins move on the motion for you to read the letter that you have wrote to the ECSU family.
Okay, so that's a motion to read the letter, and I was calling for a motion.
And a motion also for it to send out to the ECSU family.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Wilkins. May I have a second?
This is Paul Tyne. I second.
Thank you, Trustee Tyne.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just want to be clear. So the motion is to read and to send the letter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And now I need your assistance in the roll call for the motion to read.
There's point of order.
Point of order, please.
I believe you go into discussion first, and then
discussion.
Okay,
I thought
before you do the
vote.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So all right. So now discussion. Thank you. I appreciate all the support I get. All righty. So discussion before I read the letter as well.
I think you can read the letter before we discuss it, so we would know what we're discussing.
Attorney Goodson.
How is that, Paul? Is that true?
You can read the letter if you.
Okay. All righty. The letter that was shared with the board. Dear Vikings, brokenheartedness, anger, rage, hopelessness are all emotions being expressed across our country. We are experiencing and witnessing the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on communities of color, coupled with the systemic instances of violence against those same communities. We are grappling with the stark reality of what Black skin represents as a matter of life and death in the most recent stories of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. These are our sons, daughters, nephews, nieces, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, students, teachers, co-workers, friends, and neighbors. This is a watershed moment of collective grief for all Americans. We, the board, acknowledge the systemic injustice continues. Without acknowledgement across all mediums of communication available to us, there is no starting place for resolution. We support the leadership of ECSU and the UNC system and all their efforts to prepare our students for civic discourse, starting with self-examination and self-reflection of ourselves and our institutions. We support our educators in encouraging expressions of different points of view and reinforcing working together for social justice. We speak out today as silence can be experienced as indifference, or even worse, as complicity. This American journey of race and reconciliation requires us to stand together and work together to realize the vision that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In Viking pride, Elizabeth City State University Board of Trustees.
Good.
So now we call for any discussion, Please, you may raise your hand or you may begin. Be recognized. Trustee Brown. Bruce Brown. Recognizing you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
I guess I know Jan and I went back and forth on a couple emails, or the chair and I went back and forth on a couple emails, and I am like 93% in support of it. There's a couple words in there that I didn't totally agree with, and I would say that the chair's opening comments and what she just said before she read the letter, I absolutely 100% agree with. I guess I would like to add or have seen something in there to the effect of, that addresses the continued violence that's happened and the attacks on and law enforcement. And I recognize that there are bad people out there and there are bad police officers. And clearly in the case of Mr. Floyd, that a tragic death totally unnecessarily caused by a police officer. But last night we had 4 police officers shot, a 5th one shot in the back of the head in Las Vegas, and a few days ago, a Federal Protective Service officer, African-American, shot in cold blood. So I think that a statement that would oppose the violence and looting and get back to dialogue would be appropriate as well. And if the board can consider that or not, I just throw that out there as just my point of view for your consideration. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. Any other?
Trustee Barnes.
Yes, please.
I too agree with the letter in terms of sending it out. And I think we do need to say something. Extraordinary times require extraordinary measures and extraordinary responses. So I think it's good that we're not silent on the issue. I probably would have probably amended some of the wording in there and worded it just a little different than what you did. However, it is not my letter. It is a letter that you, as chair, are asking us to review and to agree to going forward. I do think that as a institution of higher learning, that we have to continuously engage in inclusional excellence as we move forward, and that we have to speak out on issues of public concern as we go forward as well. So other than drafted it differently than what you did, but I think the way what you addressed needed to be addressed, and I stand prepared to vote when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Barnes. Any other comments from our board?
I have a comment.
Please, thank you.
My hand's raised. Oh. I too support the letter that you wrote. I think it's well organized and well said. My heart is that one of the things that I'm happy that the students that they were not on campus during this pandemic, and when this injustice took place, we would probably have a riot, with the kids, with the students. But when there are bad things that happen, you're always gonna get other people doing bad things. So I think but the Bible tells us that you can't do bad and get good out of it. So we as a people, we have to, as a group of people, black and white, we have to come together as one and speak out on injustice and speak out on other things that happen in this world that's been a attack on certain individuals, so black and brown people. So, I support the letter. I think our students and also the alumni they will appreciate us making a statement concerning this situation that has happened in America. This situation have taken over the pandemic. We still got the invisible virus that's going around killing a lot of us, and mostly African American in Louisiana and other places in the United States. So I think that we just, it's a sad time in America. So And I think we need to say something, and I think we deserve to say something that when things are done not appropriate. I support the letter.
Thank you for your comments, Trustee Wilkins. Trustee Bosworth, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I agree that we, as a board, need to take a stand publicly to the community and our Viking family. And I think that this letter does a good job. I do appreciate what Trustee Brown has said, and I understand that as well. But I think that we need to move forward with this. There are many other institutions and businesses and religious organizations that have made statements, and I think that we're obligated to do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Trustee. Any other comments on the floor?
Yes, and this is Trustee Stephanie Johnson, and I also agree that we should send something out. All large organizations have been doing the same. I know that our students need to know that we stand behind them. I just think that everything needs to always end peacefully. We need to have a lot more discussions, and hopefully our university will do the same as with they return to campus, that we will continue to talk about nonviolence, peace, and ways to move ahead. And I agree that the letter should be sent.
Thank you, Trustee Johnson. Trustee Tyne, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to comment on the violence portion of this, which I felt was addressed in the letter by proposing the alternative of civil discourse. So I felt like it was, that it was addressed as part of the letter as saying, the right way to move forward is for us to have those difficult discussions that are necessary to find understanding and create a platform that we can move forward together on. So I felt that was an important part also, but I felt like it was addressed inside the letter.
Thank you for your comments, Trustee. Any other comments on the floor? Please speak up. I may not see your hand raised, so feel free to speak up. Trustee Chambers?
Yes, ma'am. So I think the letter is a really good idea. My fellow SJ presidents, they've been putting out statements, and their presidents and their university and board of trustees has as well. It's definitely an issue that needs to be established and addressed. And I think, if our students hear it from us, they'll, say, okay, they're not just sitting in silence, they're actually, seeing what's going on and addressing it.
Thank you, Trustee Chambers.
Trustee Barnes.
Yes, sir.
I don't know that we've done anything on this board since we've been here that's been perfect. And so this is not a perfect letter from my perspective, but I hope that we can, as a board, if we're going to do this in a unanimous way, understanding that the thrust of what we was trying to do and what we are saying is something that needs to be said, even though that every word in there was not something that probably any of us, all of us would have written whatever it would be in somewhat of a little different way. And so I'm asking all of our board members that even though we might not believe this is a perfect letter, that we support it perfectly as a board as we go forward. And it does not mean by our, agreeing to vote for it. It doesn't mean that we agree to every word that is in that letter or anything that may have been left out of the letter in terms of addressing. But it would be a statement of our board of trustees. And I would hope that if we're going to do it, that we would do it unanimously as we move forward. Thank you.
Trustee Kenneth Wilkins.
Yes, sir.
I think we need to even go one step further. What Trustee Bosworth was mentioning, that we need to really make a statement in the Daily Advance that you could send something to the editor and represent our trustees letting the community know that we, we do not stand for what has happened and the injustice that had happened. I think that would be appropriate also.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this
Mhm.
is Phyllis
Mhm.
Batzenmore. I, I did not mean that I thought we should give it to the Daily Advance. I wasn't, I mean, that may happen, but my point was that I felt like we needed to make a statement. And when I said the community, I meant the community of our Viking community, which includes many of the communities. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Trustee. And I will add that the intent of the letter was at the behest of the board, and this is not seeking the chancellor's permission, approval. This was letting her know of our intention. We did share the letter with her, but this is separate and apart from administration. This is the board saying, as the governing body, we are reaching out to the Viking community. And we will, of course, look to the support of the system to help us in getting our letter out to the parts of the family. And eventually, I'm sure that it will be picked up by media or not. But it's not that that's our intention. Our intention is to talk to the Vikings. And if it gets picked up, we, as a board, hopefully will continue to stand behind what we're agreeing that we're saying to the family.
That's right.
Can I say one more statement?
Go right ahead.
I think that what you say, we don't have to be careful what we say, but just make sure the words are clear. So like people can't, like misunderstand words or, and take things out of proportion. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, well, Trustee, I can guarantee you that things will be taken out of context and blown out of proportion because that's what this is. This also is part of encouraging discussion and how to have that discussion. We are imperfect. The letter's imperfect because we are imperfect. And that's where the grace comes in, to be able to sit with our own perfection and the imperfection of our brothers and sisters as we try to work toward the larger goal. And that is how we make ourselves better, our university and our nation better. So I hear you, and I really appreciate Trustee Barnes, all of the comments, but particularly saying, it's imperfect, because I think that's a reflection of our condition as human beings.
Absolutely.
So I thank you for all of your comments. Any other comments before we have the roll call for the vote?
Let's vote.
Yes, sir.
I'll make one comment. Trustee Culpepper.
Yes, thank you.
I like the letter. It's a much better letter than I could write, but that doesn't say a whole lot. But it's more tactful than I would have been, and we need that. It says the right thing in a good way, and I encourage everybody to support it. And I think it's a great university stands for a lot. And this is a way to take a stand, and we should do that.
Right.
And I appreciate you doing the letter, and I hope we will support it. And I'm sure the Daily Advance and probably some other newspapers will pick it up as we go forward.
That's right.
Thank you, Trustee. Trustee Bosworth, do I see your hand raised? No? Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I just forgot to take it down.
That's okay.
Hey, can I make
Trustee Evans.
Okay, Trustee Evans, and then Trustee Chambers. Go ahead, Trustee
Sorry,
Evans.
Trustee Chambers. No, I support the letter as well. I think, as usual, the other trustees say things and speak to it very well, but I think this is an incredibly complex situation. It speaks directly to the issues, and I think it encourages discourse and dialogue, which we are going to need in the future. So I wholeheartedly support the letter.
Thank you for your comments, Trustee. Trustee Chambers.
So my question is really for Chancellor Ditson. Do you plan to release a statement to the student body, or do you want to like do like a joint letter? Because I know you have a good
Well,
relationship.
Trustee Chambers, I'm going to stop you there and allow us to finish this discussion, and then we can ask the Chancellor the question. All right, so I'm asking for guidance from my point of order, folks, if that is correct. I don't mean to cut off our trustee if that's not appropriate.
Any discussion?
Please see if there are other discussions. Any more discussions?
Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? All righty. Ms. Sanders, we'll call for the vote.
Okay. This is the vote for the letter. Trustee Harold Barnes.
Aye.
And would you please say approve or not approved?
Approve.
Thank you. Phyllis Bosworth.
Approve.
Bruce Brown.
Approve.
Kim Brown.
Approve.
Lynn Bunch.
Approve.
Andy Culpepper.
Approved.
Jimmy Chambers.
Approved.
Christine Evans.
Approve.
Stephanie Johnson.
Approve.
Jan King Robinson.
Approve.
Tracy Swain.
Approve.
Paul Tyne.
Approve.
And Kenneth Wilkins.
Approve.
Thank you.
Motion carries. I thank you, trustees. And I will work with Ms. Sanders on getting our letter out to all the different parts of our Viking community. And Trustee Chambers, I open the floor for your questions.
Okay, so I have a question. So my question is that Chancellor Dixon, do you have any plans to release a statement on behalf of either you or you and your administration to the student body in regards to what's going on?
Thank you, Trustee Chambers. As of today, we have issued a quote on Twitter and social media in regards to the support of our students being advocates during this time, and also the gathering that the students are going to have virtually on Wednesday. And so at this point, that was issued from me through social media in support of our students, you know, and their discussions around the social and racial injustices, and as well as any conversations that they're willing to have, that we fully support that and stand with our students through this time. In regards to a statement, since this is something the trustees have decided to do, we are working with our communications department right now through Dr. Wilkins to come up with a statement that we will provide to the campus community as soon as we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion for the governance committee? Hearing none, that concludes the report of the Governance and Executive and Personnel Committee. And we now will turn, unless I get any advice, counsel from Alan or Gwen, we're ready for the Chancellor's report. Chancellor?
Good morning, Chair Robinson, and Chair Ramsey is no longer with us, but we're thankful that he was able to take time out of his schedule to join us this morning. I would also like to say good morning to the members of the ECSU Board of Trustees and everyone who has joined us today for this virtual meeting. We are living in some of the darkest hours of our time. Over 100,000 lives have been lost to the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 40 million Americans have lost their jobs, and there is unrest across the country because people are calling for change after the death of George Floyd and calling for conversations and discussions around racial and social injustices. I make this observation not as a political statement, but as a humanitarian. These are real issues affecting real people, including the students and family of our students that we serve at ECSU. As we continue to address the ever-evolving issues imposed on us by COVID-19 pandemic and the social ills of the day, it is my prayer that each of us will remain safe and well. Each day we face uncertain challenges, professionally and personally. However, our resolve is together we will get through this. We acknowledge with sadness the countless lives that have been lost due to COVID-19 and violent acts. We celebrate the triumphant victory of the many survivors. With grateful hearts, we appreciate the sacrifices of those who serve on the front line every day, battling this pandemic and working to keep our community safe. I would like to thank President Bill Roper and the UNC System Office for their guidance they provided during the pandemic. We are also appreciative of the COVID-19 relief funds that we have received from the federal and state governments. I will address the refunds later in my report. I will start by thanking Captain Bruce Brown for his service on the ECSU Board of Trustees. Captain Brown, we wish you well as you go forth, and thank you for your service. Next, I join Chair Robinson in welcoming our 2020-2021 Student Government Association President, Jimmy Chambers, to the ECSU Board of Trustees. Jimmy is off to a great start, and we are looking forward to working with him and his cabinet. Jimmy, welcome, and I'm excited about the great things you're going to do for our university. Although the spring semester was preempted and we could not celebrate our spirited traditions such as Viking Fest and spring commencement, our students and employees made the necessary adjustments to finish the term. On May 20th, we conferred 152 degrees and our first certificate in emergency management in athletic facilities. The bearer of the mace was Alexis Martin, an Elizabeth City native and computer science major, graduating with the highest GPA of an undergraduate non-transfer student at 3.866. Congratulations, Alexis. After consulting with this year's graduates, we are planning a graduation ceremony in August. In the meantime, the university participated in the virtual National HBCU commencement on May 16th, which celebrated graduates from participating HBCUs across the country. It was an exciting event, and over 9 million or so hits were on that website for that day. We are joining our sister institutions across the UNC system to strategically plan for reopening the campus in August. We released the new academic calendar last week. The first day of classes will begin on Tuesday, August 11th, which is 1 week earlier than we originally scheduled. We will also eliminate fall break and the Labor Day and Veteran Day holidays from the academic calendar. We are aware these adjustments may cause potential effects to students' plans. However, the purpose of these modifications is to minimize the times that students will travel back and forth, which reduces a risk of students contacting and spreading the virus. Employees will receive 2 additional days during the Christmas holiday to account for the 2 eliminated holidays from the academic calendar. We will follow the guidance provided by the governor, the UNC System Office, and federal and state health officials. Over the past couple of months, I realized each day that no matter how pristine our campus might be, it is a dull and lonely place without our exuberant students, engaged faculty, and enthusiastic staff. To all of you listening, we miss you so much on campus. Thanks to U.S. Congress passing the CARES Act in March, ECSU just received over $5 million in coronavirus-related federal aid. This is broken down as follows: $2.1 million for student financial aid and institutional relief at $2.8 million in HBCU relief funds. In early May, the North Carolina General Assembly appropriated $44.4 million from the Corona Relief Fund created under the CARES Act to the Board of Governors to disperse funds across the UNC system institutions to respond to the impact of COVID-19. ECSU's share of this fund was $772,000. Collectively, this much needed financial relief provided resources to convert classes from face-to-face to online delivery, deploy technology that enables students to continue learning and employees to work remotely. The funds also allowed the university to award grants up to $1,000 to impacted students. Finally, we used a portion of these funds to reimburse the university for housing and dining refunds to students. In these challenging times, we saw rays of sunshine a few days ago when Moody's Investment Services affirmed ECSU's stable credit rating. I concur with Vice Chancellor McClinton. The reaffirmation of Baa2 rating provided by Moody's confirms that the university continues to make key improvements within finance operations in order to strengthen the university's long-term financially stability and growth. So I thank you, VC McClinton, for your hard work and your team in helping us to be reaffirmed at the stable rating. As we forge our future, it is important that we invest in Elizabeth City State University. In addition to federal and state dollars, we appreciate every gift that we receive from every donor. Last Friday was the day of giving. I would like to thank Vice Chancellor Walton and her leadership team for participating in this very, very worthy cause. And as you can see the results, we have made great strides. So thank you, Vice Chancellor Walton, A.D. Bright, and all of those who participated in our day of giving to make it a success. On another note, the U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao named me to the newly formed National Women in Aviation's Advisory Board. This is a great recognition for the UNC system and ECSU, which is the state's only bachelorette program in aviation, and we are so proud of that. We are now at the national table addressing the need for more women in aviation, and we will continue to fight for more women in the aviation field as we move forward. Finally, during these challenging times, we appreciate special relationships more than ever. The Viking family and the higher education community were saddened by the loss of Dr. Thomas E. H. Conway Jr. just a few days ago. Dr. Conway was my mentor and a friend of mine for over 25 years. ECSU and the world are better places because Thomas E. H. Conway Jr. walked among us. We extend heartfelt condolences to Michelle and the entire Conway family. Let's remember, in these challenging and uncertain times, we are called to be the difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chancellor, for your comments. And once again, on behalf of the board, yesterday's committee meetings gave us all the detail, and then you reminded us again in your remarks just how much has been accomplished under so much adversity. And it truly is remarkable. So we thank you. And again, we celebrate your appointment to the Women's Aviation Board. That is just outstanding. And again, reflective of all that you're doing for ECSU and in the field of aviation, no less. Do we have any announcements before I make some closing remarks? Any announcements?
I have a personal announcement.
Please.
My nonprofit, Mosaic Development, who's headquartered in Charlotte, was in the Financial Times this a couple of weeks ago as ranked among the top 50 developers of affordable housing in the United States. And so I was very happy about that, and the staff that has worked so hard. We have 2 projects under development in Charlotte and one in New Bern and several others across the state. And so I was just happy to get that great news.
Well, congratulations to you and to Mosaic. I mean, that's some real Viking pride. Outstanding. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Chair,
Any other?
I have a political announcement that I was elected as a delegate for Joe Biden for Milwaukee, Wisconsin convention. I got his letter on Saturday.
All right. Well, thank you and congratulations, trustee. Any other announcements? No? All righty. Well, I thank everybody for engaging throughout the 2 days, for being patient with one another, and especially me. I really appreciate the support I got behind the scenes from Gwen and Alan and Derek and the Chancellor. I mean, every time you see me reaching, I'm reaching to see, okay, they're giving me some pointers on what I need to do and what I need to say. So thank you all for making it so easy. And this has been a historic meeting for us as a board, just as it's a historic time for us as a country. And I just thank you all for continuing to be willing to engage, even in the difference of opinion and the difference of the choice of words. To me, this is what is part of being a part of an educational institution, living it out. So thank you all. Chancellor, we continue to thank you for your leadership, for the leadership team and all the staff and faculty, provost, all of you that are just continuing to go above and beyond. We do care about your taking care of yourselves. So we hope that there is a culture within there, Chancellor, that you all are modeling, that there's time for family, there's time for walking and time for just being still, because unless y'all take care of yourselves, you're not modeling for the rest that we do need to do that. And that's so important during this time. So I thank everyone, and I'm going to close this Board of Trustee meeting. So I thank you all, and all hearts and minds being cleared. I wish you a very good day. God bless.
Chair Robinson, you've done an excellent job on the meeting.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Good rest of your day.
Goodbye,
Thank
everybody.
you. You
Be
too.
safe.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Be safe.